Let Daddy decide.
All right, I don't want to do bad dad jokes. I've decided.
That
Next.
I do.
Which is, how do I?
All right, Kurt.
How do I live without you?
I'm glad you're back, Kurt. How do I get into voiceover work? Because obviously Joe didn't think I was going to make it to the show, and he's just buttering up the next permanent host that he thinks you're going to save him.
Right.
I'll deal with you at home, son. Don't worry about it, Joe. You just don't worry about it. I'll deal with you at home.
Love you too, Charles.
So this is actually pretty straightforward. The advice that I give everybody and that they don't want to hear is get training. That's the very first thing that you should do to get into voiceover work. You should find a good voiceover coach, study with them until you are ready, and they will help you determine that. But until you are ready to produce a voiceover demo.
So first off, I like Random Kids tip. Number one tip, have a sexy voice. Now here's the paranoia in me. Kurt is okay. The professional in me is like, I get it. Mentorship, training, refining. The paranoid in me goes, but I keep having to pay them as long as I don't go get a job. So are they going to keep telling me I'm not ready?
No,
when I can go, I could go out.
So I'm with you because I had that same paranoia. One, references and referrals are everything, right? Don't go in blind. Get references, talk to them, find out if they are actually still producing voiceovers on their own as a side hustle, or not as not a side hustle, a primary way of them making money versus teaching being a primary way of them making money, because that makes a difference. Find out who else they've worked with, and then do a little research. And you'll find that there are people who are pretty well known who will do coaching. And when you talk to other coaches or other professionals about the people that you are considering, they usually will know who they are. So,
and nowadays, Google is a thing.
Google is a huge thing, right? And so
and social media too.
Right. And so you got to do a little legwork and a little research. Do not try to produce a demo on your own, because what happens is it's usually going to stink on ice. And when you submit that demo to people, they remember who you are.
Yeah, I got you. Now, Casey, stink on ice is when things get really, really cold and yet it still smells. I know you don't understand that in Australia, but I thought I'd explain it to you.
Right.
Kurt, we got a question for you here.
Oh,
do you need a good voice, or is it just how you use it?
It really is way more about how you use it, because everybody has a need for different types of voices. They don't all. I can play, if I had to, a dozen different voiceovers from a dozen different people of all walks of life and all pitches in their voices. They don't all have to be movie guy, right?
Which I do want to ask you about him in a minute.
But yeah. So the other thing is, nowadays they want people to do voiceovers way more conversationally, right? So honestly, I was born in the wrong era to do voiceover, because I could have made a killing in the 60s through the 80s by being announcer guy.
Yeah.
Because that was the style. But now it's not. It's just, you have to be conversational.
Now it's like, hey, Joe, you remember when you have that not so fresh feeling every once in a while, buddy? You know.
But just because somebody says, hey, you got a great voice, it means jack. Yeah. I still have a regular day job. But I hear once a week, oh, I could listen to you read the phone book. Great. Good. Pay me.
Whose grandmas are you visiting? Because kids these days don't even know what a phone book is.
Well, the people who have money do.
random kid says, I have money and I know what it is only because I grew up poor. Anyway, if I wanted to do voiceover work, would learning accents be beneficial or is it offensive?
Maybe.
To which part?
I know where he's going.
It really depends. It really depends. Because then you need to start defining what are accents. Like I have a kind of a neutral American accent voice. If I had to lean into my New England side a bit, I could, but that's not really even how I grew up talking. But then you go, well, people want something that sounds more heavy metal or more rock when you're doing an announcement. Because I do a lot of Spotify ads. And so I'm going, well, what does that mean?
That's my face. I was like, what is that? Okay, what does that mean?
Right. And sometimes it's like, and now at the Charles Theater, the next Tin Lizzy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like going, I guess that sounds rock. I don't know. But that's an accent.
Sunday.
Yeah, but that's an accent. It's just, but you're probably talking about either regional or even ethnic accents based on where, in other countries even. It's hard. It's hard. I will say that more people are wanting people from those areas to authentically do those voiceovers. I've gotten a couple of voiceovers for rap artists, and it was clear they wanted somebody with a more urban voice than I have.
Okay.
And I've turned it down. I've just going, I'm not the right guy for this. I don't know what to tell you. Like, thank you for sending it to me, but I'm not the right guy. I can't sound anything but stupid doing this.
I want to hear an announcer guy of like, this Friday, JC is going to be at the all night club, lighting it up.
Dude, yeah. I've done stuff like that. It's crazy. But what's even more crazy is I've had Spotify ads where I have to say that I'm the artist and listen to my new song.
That's weird.
It's completely weird. It's like, but like, and I've gotten more than a couple.
That's well, interesting.
It makes me think of have you ever watched the Dragon Prince?
Yeah, it was on Netflix, right?
Yeah. So one of the main characters there has a Scottish accent, and there were a lot of fans who were saying your Scottish accent is horrible. It comes and goes, and they should really get someone who's a native from Scotland, blah, blah. And they said all that without actually knowing that the actress is Scottish.
Yeah.
And it's like when people actually talk, like my wife, it depends on who she's been talking to lately, but we've got one of our neighbors is from Canada, and every now and again I hear a little bit of a boot coming from my wife, or every now and again a little bit more of the southern drawl will come into our vernacular, and it's just people have blended accents in general. Like it comes and goes in normal life. Why wouldn't it come and go in voiceover work?
When you play around with accents, one of the weirdest things is how close a British accent is to a Southern American accent.
I've heard that many times.
It just like I've tried doing a British accent and I end up falling into a drawl, and it's the weirdest thing.
The difference is kind of the cutoff. They don't finish the words.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, and with cartoons, it's even weirder because you can be a bit of a caricature, right? So, but it depends on what it is. So it's very situational.
If I can hear it for a while, I can do impressions, which is not the right thing. It's not the same thing of certain tones. Like I don't know if either one of you ever met Brian Dunaway, but he and I hung out a lot at Dragon Con, and so. The last year he was there, I started introducing him as himself. I can't do it now. I haven't heard his voice in a while, but I can do his speech patterns and everything. Right. And he's like, man, you're just creeping me out. It's like, you're welcome. But I enjoy when I'm talking to somebody And it doesn't matter where they're from in the country or out of the country. I'm in Georgia and I talk to people and they're like, man, you're not from here, are you? And I'm like, no, I spent most of my life here, but when I moved here, I was 6. And everybody, and it's South Georgia, and everybody talk like that and spit it. And like, I just worked hard I thought it sounded stupid. And I thought, and honestly, the people I dealt with, some of them pretty damn stupid. So I made sure that I did work. But if I get really tired or I get talking really fast, that's where that southern part comes out. It slurs a bit and mumbles a bit. And my wife is the worst. When she gets tired and she adds syllables to words, she's like, I didn't get some water. I'm like, I'm sorry, what is it you'd like to drink, my love? Like, shut up, go get me a glass. So the movie guy, what was his name again?
Don LaFontaine.
Yes. Now a reason I'm asking, I'm gonna spell it wrong, but Google will fix it. When he passed away, it was early in the days of podcasting.
Yep.
And they being the community of voiceover actors, made a voiceover website in his honor that doesn't look like it's up and running. Maybe I'm trying to search it.
It might not be.
But it was so good because you could go in for free and ask them, hey, will you do an intro to my podcast? Will you read it in this way? I was doing bear crawling, so I'm like, look, I'm looking for, my tagline is metal attitude meets talk radio. I need somebody to kind of give that edge and that aggressive energy, and you'll get 3 or 4 people bid for it more or less and do it. And I imagine it's probably done for free for a while. And I imagine as digital media picked up, either it got bought out and became a pay site somewhere, or it just faded, because at a certain point in this world, you are paying homage to a hero, a presumably of yours, if you're in the voiceover world. But there's only so much honor you want to pay to them for free. Right.
Yeah.
But it was a really cool community.
Yeah, and ironically, I believe that movie trailers changed a lot after he died, because nobody wanted to try to do what he did because he was so good at it. Like, you don't hear the inner world. You don't hear any of those things anymore.
I was about to reference that one because that was his thing.
You're more likely to hear 3 guys on a wacky trip. and one finds love, the others find crime.
Well, you know what was funny is he was the movie trailer guy, and that was, everybody references that, but that was him in a world where. But nowadays trailers aren't even like that. It just comes in with tones and some dialogue from the movie, and you don't really have announcers doing those things.
Right. There was a comedian who would do that, and it was hilarious because he'd just be going, "One world." No, not one world. It's just the world. One man, and he just no. It's starring a woman in a time that he didn't create. It's like, what are you even talking about? And the comedian would just like go on this whole movie trailer type thing, and just have basically himself arguing with the movie trailer guy. This makes no sense. Like, why are you talking like this? But the movie trailer thing now, if there are any voiceovers for it, because you'll often hear either narration by one of the actors in the scene that they're doing, or it's just background music, and then they go right into a scene from the movie, that kind of thing. It's very, you might get a coming March 15th. you might get that.
Yeah.
But yeah. But there's so many different voiceover things that you can do. It's more than you would think.
I was looking to see if there's any other questions. I do. It's funny how you envision what somebody looks like from a voice. I just speak the way I speak. Now I am influenced by, like I said, I grew up poor. I grew up in neighborhoods that, we shortened the term hoods. I've not been in projects. I've never lived in a project, which is a different thing, but I've definitely lived around different ethnicities and cultures and accents. And so there are definitely things I pick up that I like, that I use naturally. And Joe and I, the first year we did Pokemon Go at Dragon Con, somebody who listened to the show that came there live and saw us, was like, is it just me or am I the only person in this room thought that Charles was a skinny black guy? Like, you know, it's interesting. A guy who became one of my friends on his podcast, I literally thought he was like this raven-haired woman, and he's a redheaded gay guy. And it wasn't Rob Roberts, it was somebody else. But yeah, I was like, but the voice, right? You just go with your take on it. So I could see a particular world where if you did it just right, Kurt, nobody knows who's doing that voice. You would be that urban accent guy because they're listening on an urban radio station, presumably, or somewhere else that's playing just audio. And they're and it might sound a little different, but they wouldn't imagine Krampus, reading to them.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But I don't think about it too much. I just read what they tell me to read. and if it's what they're going for, great. If it's not, that's all right. Whatever. But there's room for everybody. There really is. Every type of voice. But you have to get the training. And
Random Kid does ask, why does some people assume intelligence level based on accent? It is a dumb misconception, but I can say part of that it's the why do we cut the ham in half to put it in the oven story. It's you trace that story back to mom, to grandma, to great grandma, blah blah, and you finally trace it back to great grandma had a stove that was a quarter the size of the stove today, and the ham wouldn't fit, so she cut it in half. But because that got passed down, we cut our ham in half at Christmas type of deal. There was a time when being able to form coherent sentences and speak well was a sign of affluence and education, because nobody cared enough when they're poor to worry about it. You had your own dialect. You had your own, Creole is French and I don't know what mixed together. Right. And so there was a time, but that was long time ago, hundreds of years ago. And so, yeah, now, it is somewhat of how much you say versus how you say it and how you carry yourself too. Because I know a guy, his accent didn't help, but he didn't want no chocolate bread, and that was just the dark loaf bread at like Longhorns. But he was out of it, and like I said, the accent didn't help, but the content was not great either. But Joe, do you have any other questions about Kurt's vocal work?
I was just going to add on to what you were saying. Like, I've got a guy that I work with who has a really thick Southern drawl, good old boy Southern drawl, and he is as smart as can be. He's one of our best database administrators, in my opinion, at our company. But yeah,
for me personally, I think part of it too is who I grew up with and the natural Southern drawl that they had just locked into you're still a moron because of the things they would say, so I will slip into when I kind of want to do something dumb. And if I want to talk about something maybe a little controversial, but take a sting out of it, I'll do my own hit voice. And you know what?
The po-po's coming for Kurt.
Yep.
So some of it is your own background. I don't know.
Roll that dice.
Yeah, that was a stupid accent.